back to the Triplecast, episode number 12, as we wrap up our Ridley Scott trilogy today with the 1979 classic Alien. It's going to be fun. It's going to be out of this world. No, that was too cheesy. Stick with us. Hello there. How are you doing, Clint?
Doing fantastic.
Ooh, fan-pause-tastic.
Fantastic.
Sounds good. Man, I gotta tell you, I'm excited about this particular podcast today. This is another one of those films that I had never seen before. But in my defense, I was only 3 years old when this movie came out.
Yes, and I was 0.
Are you 3 years younger than me? 4 years younger than me? What year were you born?
79.
Okay. And yet you've seen it. Is that your point?
No.
Mm-hmm. You stick it in my eye? Is that what you're trying to do?
No.
Oh, okay. But I'm glad I have finally seen it. This is another one of those that I have, over the years, you hear people talk about Alien and how it's one of those classic, iconic sci-fi thriller, sci-fi horror, whatever, however you want to classify it.
I mean, this is really, I think, the first movie in the sci-fi horror genre, sci-fi thriller genre. I can't think of anything.
Well, I would,
this.
I wouldn't want to act like I have enough expertise to say that. I would certainly take your word for it, though.
Anybody in the chat room?
Yep.
I mean, this movie basically started similar to Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Started a kind of a whole new genre.
Yeah.
So really cool.
Yeah, definitely very cool, and I'm glad to be reviewing it today. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. This was written by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, I believe is how you pronounce that. Of course, directed by Ridley Scott.
That's right. Had Tom Skerritt as Dallas, who was the captain of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Sigourney Weaver as her very iconic character Ripley.
Yep.
Veronica Cartwright as Lambert. Harry Dean Stanton as Brett. Mr. John Hurt as Kane. Ian Holm as Ash. And Yapat Kodo as Parker.
Yeah. And that's the cast. That's it. Which is I've got this later in the show notes, but let's mention it now. I mean, you could say, okay, Mother was a character, and you could say Alien was a character. So nine total characters in the movie if you include Mother, the voice of the ship. That's pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a really small cast but it delivered so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Like there was probably 3 times that amount of cast in this last week's episode of Fringe.
Yeah, I mean they did a great job with such a small cast.
Yeah,
and this is probably rare. It's one of those things where they, the ship itself was probably a character.
I thought about that too.
But it was rare to have a cast so small and to do so much with the movie. And the budget was, probably a lot by 1979 standards, but pretty low.
Yeah.
And this was one of the first, I think, sci-fi movies that was not a B movie. This was really an A movie.
Yeah, it really was. The budget was $11 million. The world box office, 104,931,601. That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
10 times the
and
money.
If you look at what the Alien franchise has brought in throughout the years, Prometheus is coming out next month. It's going to, ramp that up to a whole new level and introduce Alien probably to some of a new generation of people. I think a lot of people are not like me and they've seen them all before. But
what they've said is it's not a prequel, it's not a sequel.
Well, it's not a prequel.
It's entirely new mythology is what they've said.
Is that right?
That's what they've said. Now, based on what we saw in this movie,
what I heard was that it
like
wasn't a prequel in the sense that when Prometheus ends, it will lead you to the doorstep of where Alien begins. So in that sense, it's not a prequel. But these events do happen prior to Alien, in Prometheus, that is. Yeah. So in that sense, it is a prequel.
Okay.
But I don't know. We'll find out next month when we go see it.
We'll see.
Yeah. The music in this was done by Jerry Goldsmith, and I watched this one on Amazon because it gave me a 48-hour rental versus iTunes 24.
Very good.
Yep. How did you see it?
I had the director's version.
Okay. And I rented I guess there's only two versions of this, right?
There's the original theatrical version and then the director's cut.
Yeah, and so I watched the original theatrical version. Yeah, so they're not very different, I don't think, but there may be a few differences that we talk about along the way.
Right.
The plot from IMDb, real short and sweet. I loved it. The crew of the deep space mining ship Nostromo are awakened from hypersleep to investigate a strange signal coming from a nearby planet. While investigating the signal, they discover it was intended as a warning and not an SOS. I love that because it's really short. It doesn't spoil anything. Some of the other, like the one on iTunes, spoils the whole thing. It tells you that the alien starts picking off the cast and that Sigourney Weaver's the only one that survives. And I'm like, really? How about you spoil everybody in your description of the movie there? But anyway, that's why I liked the one from IMDb. All right, let's get into the thoughts on the plot, Clint.
Okay. What did you think of the plot, Daryl?
Passing it back to me.
No, what I'll say is, for some reason, I thought I had seen the entire movie before, because I'd seen it a long time ago. I had actually seen it a couple times, but I didn't realize I hadn't seen the whole movie.
Okay.
When I sat down and watched it, I had missed probably the first 30 or 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Until the alien gets on the ship.
That's a big part of the movie.
Huge movie, and so all of that stuff, and the stuff that we see in the Prometheus trailer.
Yeah.
Where you've got the fog and then the smoke screen that's broken and that kind of activates the alien popping out of the egg.
Uh-huh.
That was all new to me. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely ties into the Prometheus trailer. You see that as soon as they land on that planet and see that crashed ship that's kind of a hoop-looking thing. There's no question that we've seen that in the Prometheus trailer.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, that was pretty cool. I've said many times before that I grew up watching horror flicks as a kid.
Uh-huh.
And so I had a few issues with the film that I'll get to here in just a second. But this reminded me a lot of those. And so I would definitely classify it as a sci-fi horror flick. Not as bloody as some of the other ones, but as far as the style of it, something's going to reach out and grab you, the music building up to that point, definitely reminded me of a horror flick. And so as I'm watching it, I'm like, are you kidding me? This is nothing more than one of those flicks that I grew up watching, except it's set in space. Why is this movie so great? Why do people love this movie so much? And then I realized this movie came first.
Yeah.
This came before a lot of those. Not all of those. Not all of them, but many of them that I grew up watching. This predates them. So they owe their thrillerness, I like that for a word, to this movie, not vice versa. And so it helped me respect the movie a whole lot more than I did at first. And I had to realize that this one came first. The other thing that really bothered me at first, I was really going to rate this movie down. The first half of the movie, I'm watching it, and I was not liking the movie very much at all. Partially because of what I just mentioned about it, to me feeling like a ripoff of other movies. But the other one, when they had the alien stuck to his face and Ash lets him on board, I'm looking at that going, are you kidding me? There is no way. That is not realistic at all. These people, this group of 7 people, are on a space mission. They all understand the dangers and the protocols for being on this mission.
Right.
And to think that one of them would have this alien life form stuck to his face, and they're going to breach protocol and risk all of their lives to allow this thing to come on board? Unacceptable. Plot hole. I can't get through it. I was hating the movie because of that. Well, then when you find out that Ash is an android and he's going by this other set of commands, oh, that changed everything. That changed it made it not a plot hole, but a certain
foreshadowing, right?
Yeah, and so it just brought it all in. And so my opinion by the end of the movie had come full circle, and I really enjoyed it quite a bit. But that's kind of where I was coming from at the beginning of the movie, going, this is a ripoff, this is a big plot hole. But by the end of the movie, all of that was in a happy place for me.
Yeah, I think that's great. We've already talked about the Prometheus trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl, you had in here that you thought it seemed odd that they needed to gather so many supplies for the shuttle.
I did. It just seemed to me that if you need the shuttle, then that means that you need to get off of the Nostromos.
Right.
And you probably need to get off quickly. So to think that they have this shuttle that's not equipped that they have to go get all this other equipment for to spend this time. It didn't that did seem like a bit of a plot hole to me,
right.
or plot device.
Yeah.
Just so that you could get these two people isolated so that Alien could kill them.
Right.
So I would have liked to have seen another reason for them to gone off by themselves. The fact that they needed to prepare the shuttle didn't seem realistic to me. The whole purpose of a shuttle is so that you can make a speedy getaway, an emergency exit, and that wouldn't have been the case here. So a fairly minor thing, but still, I would have liked to have seen something done differently with that. But having said that, once she did escape, and she thought that she had outsmarted the alien and gotten onto the escape shuttle safely. I'm watching it going, man, she's disrobing and she's getting ready to get into stasis again. And I'm like, this can't be the end of the movie. And I wiggle the mouse and see how much time is left in the movie. And I'm like, oh, there's definitely more coming our way. And then we see the alien hiding over there. I was so glad to see that. I didn't want it to end with her, just blowing up the alien on the Nostromo. I wanted there to be some hand-to-hand combat between her and the alien.
Right.
And we got that.
Yeah.
So I was really glad to see it didn't end with her escaping in the shuttle.
Yeah. I kind of wonder why they didn't purge the Nostromos to begin with.
They said that when they were down to 4, one of them said that 4 can't fit on the shuttle. Only 3 can fit on the shuttle. No,
I just meant why didn't they purge it out into space? I guess that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the alien to that one area.
They're trying to get into the airlock.
Yeah. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got?
Man, I've got all the points here. I didn't mean to steal all the talking points from you. Another thing I thought was a little bit weak was they didn't really have any real weapons. They have a flamethrower that's a legit weapon, but then otherwise they had like a prod of some sort.
Yeah, well, they were miners, right?
Sure they were. But at the same time, they're expected to stop on any planet that has some sort of distress signal and not have weapons for that?
Yeah.
Didn't make sense to me.
Well, maybe it's part of their society. Maybe there are no weapons in the future.
Maybe so. I just thought it was odd that there were no weapons on there. Yes. They did well with what they had, but... And I'm not saying that there could have been weapons that would have been able to overcome the alien, but it would have been nice if they had some sort of weapon on the ship. Okay?
D-Rack 6955 says oil rigs don't have weapons.
I understand that. But I bet you will go to an oil rig and there's at least a gun on that oil rig somewhere. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe the platform's out in the ocean.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Thoughts on styles, directing, acting? This is just kind of a general comment, but I think that the 1970s gave us some of the best space movies.
They did, didn't they?
We got a lot of the best sci-fi movies coming out. And, of course, the 80s were good. 90s were okay.
Yeah. 2000s were pretty good. Outside of the prequels to Star Wars. I mean, visually they were good, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you talk about Star Wars. I mean, you can't talk about the 70s and space movies and not think about Star Wars. And they kind of took the Star Wars approach with the way they filmed, the external shots of Nostromos.
The ship.
Yeah.
And the planet.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job with the whole space feel.
Yeah, they did.
The cast, I thought, did a great job. They, the way that the two maintenance guys bickered about their share the whole movie.
Yeah.
Was totally something that would happen, right?
Oh, sure.
On a rig like that. So that was good.
And I was glad to see that. I mean, those two guys, because they bickered so much, the audience probably wanted them to be the first to die. And I was glad that they weren't. It kind of helped enjoy it when they did get it later. Not that they weren't bickering about something that was halfway legitimate.
Right.
It just would have been really easy to make them the first to go.
Right, absolutely.
And they weren't, and I liked that.
Yep. I thought everything held up really well in this movie, unlike in Blade Runner. I mean, the stuff in Blade Runner held up okay. I thought things in this movie held up a lot better.
No question.
With one exception.
What was that?
And that was the alien popping out of the stomach.
Oh, for me, there was one other exception, but yeah, the alien on a stick is what it looked like.
Yeah, just like, and then it runs off.
Yeah.
And then like a few minutes later, it's a giant alien.
Yes. Yeah. That was definitely weird.
Yeah.
I agree with that. The thing that was more striking to me as far as not holding up was when the Nostromo's exploded. Those graphics that they used and the sound effects were just very, very dated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. This may have been one of the things that they added in the director's cut, but you actually got to see it like flash like 3 times.
Yeah.
And so that was a little off.
It was.
But other than that, the spaceship I thought held up really well.
It did.
The actors and their styles and everything held up really well. I mean, you could tell it was filmed in the 70s, but it didn't really feel super dated. Even the CRT monitors
of Mother and stuff.
And Mother and things like that, actually, I think held up very well.
I thought they did too. And you mentioned, the way that the ship was almost a character, and I loved the opening shot. It's almost 7 minutes into the film before we hear any dialogue whatsoever.
Right.
And that, again, shows you great directing. But it also, what it was doing was going up and down some of the passageways of Nostromo's to kind of help you understand the set. It put the audience into a better understanding of the setting. And so when you understand the size and scope of the ship and how hard it was going to be to track down, this wasn't the Millennium Falcon that only had, 3 rooms to it.
Right.
This was a huge, massive ship with lots of nooks and crannies for the alien to hide. And it really helped put the audience and give them understanding of the scope of this ship right from the very, very beginning. I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah, and it also, kind of gave you a feel for the solitude of space and the fact that they were in this really kind of sterile place where there's no place to go.
Yeah.
There's this thing that there's no way to get away from it because it's all up in your grill. It's all up in your mix.
That's true.
So yeah. I think that was it. Other thoughts? You already mentioned that. So
yep, I think I've gone through all of that.
So what happened next, Daryl?
Well, with Ridley Scott, we've mentioned this in our
100 billion
last
times.
podcast. Yep. I mean, he did so many things. This was actually the earliest of all the films that we've talked about. So after this, he did Blade Runner. After this, he did Gladiator and all the other things that we've already talked about. Tom Skerritt, he was one of those guys that you recognize him from everything. He was in Top Gun. He's been in so many other things. Anything else of his stick out to you in particular, though?
The show Picket Fences. I don't know if you ever saw that. Was he? It looks like he was in MASH.
Yeah.
Nothing else really stuck out.
Yeah.
Stock.
Stoke.
But he's been in a ton of stuff. I mean, you go back and look at his IMDb page, and he's been in. One other role that was really memorable to me was the role that he had in A River Runs Through It as the dad.
Okay. And I've seen that, but it's been so long ago that I don't really remember his role in that. But he just has one of those faces that you look at him and go, oh, yeah, I recognize him because he's been in so many things.
Yes. Which was one of Brad Pitt's earliest movies.
It was.
Yeah, and he was the Reverend McLean. I'm looking at the page now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I remember that now.
It's a really good movie.
Yep, it is.
Sigourney Weaver, of course, went on to do Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, Dave.
Yes.
That was a good movie. I'm trying to think of course, all of the Alien.
Yeah.
All of the other Alien movies.
Right, of course.
Vantage Point, you have Avatar. She was in that. And a movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt called Heartbreakers.
Okay. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and it has been in a ton of other movies.
Yeah, definitely. Veronica Cartwright, she played the other female in this one. She was in Invasion and X-Files, 2 really big sci-fi TV shows that people will remember. Yep. Invasion was one of those that was killed by the writer's strike a couple of years ago.
Right, yeah. Which was one of the ones
Journeyman.
I watched. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watched Invasion.
Yeah, I miss Journeyman. Moment of silence for Journeyman. Yep.
John Hurt, I think if you see him, you'll recognize him. He was in the movie 1984. Was in several of the Harry Potter movies. Was in Hellboy and the sequel, V for Vendetta, and most recently in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
All right.
Had a really, really good role. He played Control in that movie.
Okay. And Ian Holm, who played Ash, the android, we didn't really talk about that. That was a really cool scene. he starts sweating this milky substance, and I'm thinking,
You're like, what is going
what's
on?
wrong with this guy? My first thought was maybe he had been impregnated, and so his body was reacting strangely.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be an android, but that held up really well. Like, you had the fakey mask-looking thing. You could tell his head was up through the bottom of
and you could tell when it cut, right?
Yeah, you definitely could. But otherwise, like the innards that they made him with, even like the fiber optic looking stuff, I thought it held up pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the milky blood was a pretty cool touch, I think.
It was a nice touch.
Yeah.
And it really made, when he lost it for whatever reason, I'm not sure what happened.
I don't either.
And he's
weird.
taking that magazine and trying to ram it down Ridley's throat. It's like, you would never do that if you're trying to choke somebody. But
it's weird.
Yeah, but you could tell he had lost it.
Something he needed to be rebooted or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was in Chariots of Fire, Time Bandits, Brazil,
great movie. Yeah.
The Fifth Element, and he played Bilbo Baggins.
That's right, in the Lord of the Rings.
In the Lord of the Rings series, and he will be reprising that role in The Hobbit.
I also played a scientist in one of the worst movies ever, Day After Tomorrow.
I don't think I've seen that.
That's good.
Yes, I finally haven't seen a movie that's not worth watching. That's funny. All right, same vein on this. I mean, you have to go Predator because of the whole Alien versus Predator. But beside that, even if there wasn't the crossover there, I would say that if you like one, you'll like the other.
Yeah, definitely. Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Alien versus Predator,
Prometheus,
of course,
probably.
Yeah. But there have been a lot of really good space movies, scary space movies.
Mm-hmm.
Two that I think are pretty good, that are certainly in the same vein, would be Event Horizon, which starred Sam Neill from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, of course.
And that movie was really scary when it first came out. And then Danny Boyle, who directed, I'm trying to remember what he did. He did the 28 Days Later, Slumdog Millionaire.
Okay, yeah.
He did a space movie with Cillian Murphy called Sunshine.
Okay.
And it was very similar to this. Yep.
That's different from Little Miss Sunshine?
Little Miss Sunshine.
Is that different?
It's different.
2 movies?
2 movies.
Okay.
2 different movies. Yeah, and Dirac 6955 says that. Yeah, Pitch Black is another one, starring Vin Diesel. That was actually pretty good. It was a decent, it was kind of shot as a B movie and actually turned out to be okay.
Oh, cool.
So
very good. All right. Well, Clint, it's that time once again. It's now time for Name That Movie. Movie.
All right. So we've got Dances with Wolves. Kevin Costner.
That's where we left off.
Yes.
Okay. So Dances with Wolves. Do you know who the female lead was in that one?
I was trying to remember her name when we were talking about it. I cannot remember her name at all.
Her character name was Stands with a Fist.
I do remember that.
And it was Mary McDonnell.
Mary McDonnell.
Okay. Is that ringing any bells for you?
Zero
Good.
bells.
You won't be getting this one on your first guess,
Good.
probably.
Okay.
All right. Mary was also in this 1996 movie that released on July 2nd, the same day in which the story of the movie begins.
July 2nd, 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Independence Day?
Dances with Alien. I love it. Yes.
Did I get it right?
Yes. You suck so much.
I was trying to remember what came out July 2nd. I actually remember that.
It was supposed to come out July 3rd originally, but there was so much anticipation for the film
that they launched it a day earlier.
They launched it a day earlier,
I remember
which
that.
coincided with the day the movie, the story of the movie begins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, rats.
Oh,
gum.
You know what? I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but she was in that, and she was also in Battlestar Galactica, right?
I don't remember. I don't know. Here are my other clues.
Okay.
This movie is a sci-fi action classic with other sci-fi studs, starring other sci-fi studs. Brent Spiner.
Right.
Adam Baldwin.
Was Adam Baldwin in it?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Apparently. I don't remember his role in the film. I need to look that up.
No, I don't think he was in that movie.
I'll look it up again just to make sure. I don't want to be wrong. And Jeff Goldblum, of course, Jeff Goldblum was in it. And his sci-fi street cred goes all the way back to The Fly for me.
Yes.
IMDb.
Judd Hirsch was in it.
Judd Hirsch was in it. Definitely Judd Hirsch was in it. And
Will
Pullman,
Smith.
Gary, not Gary Pullman. What's it? Paul
Yeah,
Pullman?
Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman. That's it. Yeah. Okay, let's look up Independence Day, 1996, and Adam Baldwin played Major
Adam
Mitchell.
Baldwin.
What did I say?
Did you? That's probably what you said. For some reason, I heard Alec Baldwin.
Oh. I said Adam Baldwin.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Adam Baldwin from Firefly.
He was in it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Gary
Coleman?
Huh?
No, not Gary Coleman.
Gary Coleman.
That's what I thought you were going to say, too.
No. At the time, this movie was the second highest grossing film in history. It's obviously been surpassed several times now. And this film is about an alien invasion. And of course, Independence Day.
That's right.
So our next Triplecast will focus on 3 other alien-focused films.
Okay.
Aliens, Alien Resurrection, and Alien 3.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We're a little bit behind schedule on this. The original intent was I wanted to get all the Alien movies in before Prometheus comes out this summer. And so there's 4 of them that are worth watching from what I understand. The Alien versus Predator is not a bad film, but it's not necessarily as tied in as the other 3. I haven't seen any of them, so I'm taking other people's words for this. And I thought, man, there's 4 of them. How am I going to do this? So we did the Ridley Scott to end on Alien, and then do Aliens, Alien Resurrection, and Alien 3. So to get us all 4 of those leading into Prometheus. So we may not get all of these done before Prometheus comes out. I don't know that that's necessary, but I thought it would be kind of a cool thing to tie in with Prometheus.
Especially Alien Resurrection.
Uh-huh.
That one was just okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I think if we can get Aliens and Alien 3 in,
okay,
we'll be in good shape.
So do you want to watch them in the order of Aliens, Alien 3, and then Alien Resurrection?
I think that's the way to do it, don't you?
Okay. It's up to you, man.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them, so I couldn't tell you. Once again, an example of Clint seeing films that I haven't, which is not hard to do. All right, I'm going to reorder those. So we have Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. That's the order we're going to be watching them in, folks.
And
so,
I'm probably going to, because they had them on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna get the Alien quadrilogy.
It might, you can get the quadrilogy, and it might be cheaper to do.
It was cheap. It was like they had it on Amazon for like a ridiculously cheap price.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing the same thing. I haven't decided yet, but I saw that it was out there, and I may do the same thing.
Okay.
So there you have it. Our next Triplecast will be Alien Triplecast. I understand it's a little bit odd how we're doing this because there's 4 films that we've really spread across 2 Triplecasts, but I think it makes sense to do it this way to get them all in by Prometheus. So looking forward to that one for sure, for all 3 of those. All right, we have some feedback. I teased in the last podcast that we were going to be reading this time. We had some feedback on the blog over at goldenspiralmedia.com on our Blade Runner that I mentioned that it was Highway 61 was on your side as far as A Knight's Tale being a good or a bad film.
Right.
He was on your side. And then he and I spoke back and forth. But anyway, this is from Interdimensional Dave. He says, Clint and Daryl, what's going on, man? I just finished listening to your latest Triplecast featuring the movie Blade Runner. Another fine effort, I must say. I like your mixture of humor and pathos. The humor being how much Daryl doesn't know about movies, and the pathos being, well, how much Daryl doesn't know about movies. Just teasing a D-man. Early on in the podcast, you seemed to be searching for a way of describing the visual aesthetic and setting of the movie, and you cited dystopian and I think cyberpunk. I did mention both of those. He says, may I suggest another, steampunk? Steampunk usually involves the use of anachronistic technology, and strictly speaking, Blade Runner isn't a steampunk movie, but it does include elements of the visual aesthetic, like overwrought, polluted cities full of smoke and flame, or machines jetting plumes of steam. There were many examples of that visual pastiche? I'm not familiar with that word. Sorry. In Blade Runner. For a rating, I give Blade Runner 8.5 C-beams glittering in the dark off the Tannhauser Gate. Also, when you get to Gladiator, if you have a home theater sound system, when you play the initial battle scene with Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius, crank up the sound, as it is truly a treat for the ears. As for the movie Alien, I think you'll detect a little steampunk in that movie also, plus your occasional CRT monitor. There is a certain charm to those screens as the flicker in and out. Despite this movie being set so far into the future, the computers and their monitors have a certain human quality to them, as they are far from perfect. Be good men, Interdimensional Dave. So, thank you, Dave, for sending that in. We appreciate that. And I'm glad I can humor you with all that I know and mostly don't know about the movies we're watching. Yeah. All right. Anything else, Clint?
I think that's it.
All right. If you guys want to send us in feedback like Dave did, you can phone that in to the Golden Spiral Media voice feedback line at 304-837-2278, or typey it up and send it in via email to feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Fringe Observers. That's the account for all of our podcasts, even though it says Fringe. And you can connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/goldenspiralmedia.
That is correct.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the Alien series. This will be fun.
It will be a lot of fun, I think. And I can't wait, as we've mentioned, for Prometheus to come out this summer.
All right.
As much as I love Batman, I'm actually more excited for Prometheus just because the trailer, and it's doing it for me. I'm really excited about it. But until next time, Trianara.
Keep it nerdy. No.
Triplecast is a production of Golden Spiral Media. Intro and outro music provided by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com. For more information about this or other Golden Spiral Media podcasts, visit goldenspiralmedia.com. Copyright 2012, Golden Spiral Media.